Holy shit, that's like all of the enemy team. Okay. Teammate was pretty helpful. You specifically, I want the fuck away from me. Hi, if you follow me, which I assume you do because you're watching this right now and are anywhere from the ages of just born to fucking dead, you're probably wondering, what was that mess? Well, let me explain. What you just saw was an arena shooter. This is also an arena shooter, but the difference between what you just saw and what you're looking at now, well, that's a long story. Now, you're probably asking, what's an arena shooter? Well, I'll tell you, you pompous inebriate goblin. Well, I couldn't specifically find when the term arena shooter was first coined, and I can't really find a consensus on the definition for the term either. What I usually like to define an arena shooter by is by a few key things. Number 1, no loadout shit. Loadouts are for weenies, and we're big, tough, manly men in this community. Number 2, you only spawn with a basic weapon and have to find others around the map. Number 3, maps are made solely to be maps to fight in, with no regard for realism or accuracy of location. Number 4, weapons all have varied use and or projectile speed. And lastly, number 5, movement is key. That last one is arguably the most important. In arena shooters, if you have to stop moving to line up your shot, you will die. Aiming attacks on the move is an essential skill. Now, Doom applies all 5 of these principles, but not nearly as much as some more notable arena shooters like Quake or Xonotic. I bet you want to see some gameplay, don't ya? Alright, Slugger, here's some arena shooter gameplay at its best.
Well, escape low, but he's come back up. Cooler actually switched out to shotgun mid-fight. Cooler was making his mind up where to go, but
Cooler was so
oh, what a rocket.
the rocket did. Oh,
That one did.
did.
And here we go, Cooler knew it, had already done some damage with the rocket, and he's going to finish off with a lightning gun kill.
That's going to be the end of Cypher. There comes a great machine gun kill on Rapper. Who's the first kill after 1 minute 30. Nice conversion.
And he's waiting for Cooler to take the shot, and Cooler baiting him out.
Now, I love me some Quake as much as the next guy, but that's not what we're talking about here, so forgive me for moving on. We were talking about Doom 2 and that wacky, crunchy mess you saw earlier. Doom 2 was notable for its deathmatch as well, and another thing that it was notable for was its moddability. Doom 2, to this day, still has an active modding community that continues to make maps, mods, and source ports. The source port we'll be focusing on today is a long-deprecated source port called Skulltag. Skulltag was notable as it was the first source port to introduce client-server multiplayer versus peer-to-peer multiplayer. Whether that was a good or bad thing is a whole nother video, but it helps us get where we are today. This was also a pretty popular port for single player, and many would make maps and mods for it. This leads us to one modder, Mike Hill, otherwise known as Cutman Mike, would quietly release a WOD called Ghoul's Forest. It had a mildly lukewarm reception, but to figure out what it was like, I decided to download it myself and play it. I don't normally do very well with horror, so this was a bit out of my comfort zone. What? Well, that was a bit anticlimactic. Maybe I did something wrong, though. Either way, Mike continued plugging away at WOD creation. Notable creations are his contributions to the Skull Tag Community Last Man Standing project, the 2 sequels to the Ghouls Forest series, Z-Portal, which was a portal mod for Z-Doom, and the x10 mod. And then, Mike struck gold. Well, not entirely. He thought to himself, with all the multiplayer dooming, and with the booming popularity of my Ghouls Forest mod, why not combine the two? And so, he did. And with that came the supposed death of many of the lesser played Doom game modes, according to his decriers. Ghouls vs. Humans, released in 2009, absolutely exploded onto the multiplayer scene. Mike took his 3 iconic ghosts from Ghouls Forest and turned them into playable characters, along with 3 unique human classes to fight against them. You'd load up a server with this installed, and eventually you'd have a bustling hub full of people to fight against. It was a great time for everyone, until eventually people started making add-ons. Eventually, in order to join any Ghouls vs. Humans server, you'd have to install a ton of crap that would just take away from the experience. So, slowly but surely, people stopped playing. And nowadays, all you find are empty servers, trying to run a game that people just aren't interested in anymore. Mike wasn't paying attention to that, however. He was hard at work on something new, something bigger, something mega. This trailer, released in 2010, is the first known footage of Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch. The video rapidly garnered views, quickly becoming the most viewed video on Mike's channel, with nearly 300,000 views on that video today. A playable demo was later released on July 7th of 2010, with Mega Man 1-6 weapons. The demo only contained 4 maps and 5 skins, however, a far cry from the total we would soon have. The full version, released on October 8th, 2010, came out to a very warm reception, with many downloading it and beginning to play right away. To spare you some time, the game began receiving updates, adding more maps and weapons from later Mega Man games. The mod also eventually moved to the Xandronum engine, Skulltag's spiritual successor. Now, I'm gonna read your mind. You're probably saying right now, hey, this is cool and all, but it isn't what you showed off initially. And you'd be right. To address this point, it's time to talk about every Quake fan's favorite genre, the hero shooter. Now, before the 2 hardcore Quake fans leave, hear me out. Hero shooters are good for the genre. They're a good gateway into the wacky world of strafe jumping and bee-hopping. Except you don't get fucking dunked on if you're bad. Now, you've got 2 kinds of hero shooters. The, I have very few classes, but all of them fill a very specific niche. And then you have the, I'm going to shard out 800 classes, have fun. Team Fortress 2 is an example of a game that falls into the first niche, as it only has 9 classes, each with their own defined usage. Overwatch and Paladins, on the other hand, each have more classes that sometimes mesh together in game plan sense. Sadly, the mod we're talking about falls into the latter. This mod has a jaw-dropping 116 classes, each with their own method of play. But we're gonna have to take another quick history lesson before we get into this. We didn't just start with the holy grail of 8-bit deathmatch class mods. There's quite a bumpy road to get there. Initially, there was silence. And then, Yellow Devil said,
これらの脂肪クソナッツ
and it was good. YD Classes was the first big classes mod, and is technically still the biggest. It's gone through some pretty major overhauls, though, now going by the name Class-Based Mod, or CBM for short. There was a competition for best class mod in previous versions of the game, though. King Yamato's classes were shown to be more canon-centric, adhering to the canon abilities of the Robot Masters. King Yamato's classes would continue to update until 8-bit Deathmatch version 3, when it was discontinued. Another mod around version 4 rose to take its place, called Justified Classes. Justified Classes is currently dormant, though. We're waiting on a new update. Currently, the patch everyone plays is CCBM, otherwise known as, you guessed it, Competitive Class-Based Mod. Now, you'd expect we play Team Deathmatch or Duel, since this is a Doom mod, but we actually prefer to go the Counter-Strike route and play Last Man Standing. Although, not to say we don't occasionally play duels, however. But Team Last Man Standing is the preferred game type because it places the importance on managing your health, good teamwork, positioning, and strategizing. Now, allow me to actually showcase what you've been wanting to see. Some real clips from actual public lobbies from yours truly. But these are public lobbies, not really a true showcase of skill when pubs are usually jam-packed with the first-time newbies and the people who play random for a living. No disrespect to those guys though, keep doing what you're doing. Where all the nutty, big-brain plays come out to play are the private games of Team Last Man Standing, or PRIVs for short. Priv games you need to be invited to. Servers are either hidden or password protected to prevent randoms joining. Once you've been invited, you need to wait until somebody else wants to priv, and then you need at least 6 people. Any less and you can still practice, obviously, but you can't play a real priv game. Once you have 6 people, great, then you can start playing privs. Usually, the process for playing privs goes a little something like this. A command will be run to select 2 captains. The first captain, obviously, is first pick, and then the second captain is map pick. So usually, first, captains decide whether to play 3v3s, 4v4s, or 5v5s. Actual games are played in 3s, but when we priv, we use 4s and 5s as a way to have more people play at once. After deciding how many players you want, captains take turns picking team members until all slots are filled. Then the captain that had second player pick picks a map. And then you actually get to play the game. Games are best 3 out of 5, and then everyone spectates, and the process repeats itself. Now for some funny clips I've dug out that completely undermine the skills of priv games. Ah! Now, obviously, we don't just play a competitive format for fun. There is a league. That league's name? You guessed it. Class-based league. What'd you expect? As I'm writing this, at 1 AM on April 16th, signups are about to close for the 4th season of CBL, which many are expecting this season to be the best season thus far. I find it kind of funny, honestly, how Cutman Mike, a man who initially would contribute to Skulltag's Last Man Standing packs, would unknowingly contribute to one of the most entertaining games of Team Last Man Standing I've ever played. This has been my words on, in my humble opinion, the coolest hero shooter you've never played.